Welcome to Gen 365 podcast. This is an initiative of Beyond the Veil Mission. And this is a podcast for the community to empower a generation of healing and hope 365 days of the year. Before we begin, I want to remind you the meaning of humanity or Ubuntu. I am because you are. I am because we are. Therefore, to create a safe and brave space for all of us, we must remember that my healing is as good as my community healing. This is a podcast for everyone who loves the community. If you are listening to this new episode, I want you to remember that we see you and you matter. Welcome. Today we have a special guest. And the topic of today is caregivers of children and youth with special needs. I am saying that we have a special guest because Judite, she's going to tell you more about herself. However, Judite worked with us at Beyond the Veil. As you all know, Gen 365 is a podcast by the Beyond the Veil. And Judite plays so many roles at Beyond the Veil, including she's the first person that I went to when I had the vision of Beyond the Veil. I'm so glad that she's the first person that I went to. We started this organization together, and she has contributed so much to the work that we do, especially in the area of finances, so many things, community engagement. So we are so happy to be here again. My name is Judite Mbuguje. I am your host, and I'm going to welcome Judite. Judite, how are you?
I am good. I'm so excited to be here and to have this chat with you. I am beyond excited for this. I can't wait.
Thank you so much, Judite. So for every parent, or if you know anyone with a child or youth with special needs, when we special needs, I think she's going to explain more about that. That's her role today. I'm going to encourage you to share this podcast because I believe this can benefit many parents or caregivers with children and youth with special needs. So Judite, first of all, tell us who is Judite in professional settings and outside of your professional world. Who are you? Thank you.
Professionally, I work as an education assistant with Thames Valley School Board. I work with children with autism, Down syndrome, different mental health, ADHD, and developmental disability. I think that's most of the kids that I work with. I also work as at first I used to work in a living foster home as a foster mom. And then I moved on to working on my own in my own home. I had a few children come and live with me. And currently I work with, I just work as a respite. So I'll have kids over on the weekends or on holidays when their foster parents are on holidays or on the weekends just to give them a break. And as personally, I am a mom, I'm a wife. I have two beautiful children, a little boy and a little girl, 7 and 5. I also have a big family. So, and what else is gonna say personally, my personal life? I also have a great relationship with a lot of kids that I fostered previously. Some are adopted, others are grown up and have moved on into their own homes, and we have a very special relationship. They still come on home and we hang out and everything. So they play a big role in my life. So I'm just so grateful for everything. Yeah.
Yes, Judite, thank you so much. And I think we have so many things, I think, in terms of relationship. We are related in many ways, but I think the first time I heard your work, about your work with children, fostering, professional settings, I was extremely inspired, and I continue to be inspired because this is not something we hear often in our community. And I was so happy to know that you are coming here to share your journey, share tools, and when we think about the foster mom area, that's where I'm like, even the choice of the children that you choose to work with children with special needs. I think most of us, we can be like, I want to help kids, but how many of us really can be willing to really assist and support children with special needs? And I think it comes with your gift. And I think that's something that the world needs to know. And I'm glad that our listeners today are going to learn so much from you, not only as a work, but as a calling, so, they can be inspired and all of that. So I'm going to ask you, Judith, what inspired your journey as a foster mom and as a foster mom or to work with children and youth with special needs or social challenges? What inspired your journey?
So actually, as you said, we in our communities, a lot of times we don't know anything about fostering or foster parents. Like when I got hired, at first I did not know what fostering was. So I went in as a child and youth worker. Just I thought it was a group home, and my role will be to, of course, support the kids throughout the day and then go home. But I was surprised to tell me that no, it was a living foster home, and I'll have to stay there and stay with the kids and pretty much play the role as their mom. Mm-hmm. And at first I was like taken back because I was only 21 and I had no kids yet. I had no experience, well, other than my siblings, my cousins. And so I had no kids. I really didn't know if I was able to play that role as a mom yet. Mm-hmm. And, so I had, like, of course I took it. I accepted the position, and I lived with a teenager, and that was the challenge, of course. So, but I still loved it. Like, I could just see the need and how much this child just needed guidance. And I was, at that point, she was 16, so I knew my role was going to be a big sister and just support her and help her out. Mm-hmm. And then I had a 6-year-old, and now with this 6-year-old, we had a very special bond. We bonded constantly, like instantly, like right away. He just came into my home. He was holding my hand. He was talking to me. He just felt like right away connected with me, and immediately started calling me mom. And that was the first time I was ever called mom. Oh, wow. Yeah, with that little boy, I stayed with him stayed with me for 3 years, and then he got adopted. Oh. So, and he had a lot of challenging behaviors with school, at home, and at first it was hard to get him a home for adoption because of his behaviors. Mm-hmm. But of course, I worked with him. I was able to kind of work with him to the point where he was able to actually get to the point of getting adopted, and he got a home. And until today, he's still in my life. I talk to him constantly, a lot of times, we message each other. So it just felt great to give a child that chance to have a forever home, and a home with parents who are going to love him and support him, and just, it was just great to be able to give him that. So, yes. Yeah, I fell in love at that point, and I continued having different kids in my home, and then that's when it led me to being an education assistant, is because I had a lot of kids most of my kids had challenging at school. So yes. At home they were okay, they were able to, because of course it's one-on-one, I'm able to give them that one-on-one attention and help them work through their tantrums or challenges, if they're feeling sad or if they're angry. Like, it was me and them, so it was easier to work with that step by step to be able to help them work yes. throughout all the challenges. So at school, on the other hand, it was hard because, of course, and a lot of schools do not have, especially in areas where it's suburb areas, like they don't have a lot of EAs or education assist or ECEs. Like it's usually teacher and student. So my kids did not like they really had like they had a hard time places like that because they need one-on-one attention. So a lot of times I'll send them to school, and within an hour they're asking me to come and pick them up because they are having challenging behaviors and they're not able to self-regulate and pretty much get them to a calming state where they could be able to continue learning. So I'm like, okay, give me some work. Tell me what you're working on. And it got to the point where I pretty much ended up homeschooling these kids because they were really getting sent home that often. And to the point where the kids would tell me, you know what, I actually being at home. I like learning from home because I learn home from home. And automatically I'm interpreting it as like, okay, it's because I'm with you. I'm spending that time with you, taking my time to work with you step by step so you could understand that work rather than in a classroom where not that is the teacher's fault, but she has 25 kids to teach. And so some kids are being left behind, and that was what's happening. So I spent a lot of time in school picking them up and trying to self-regulate them at school, trying to problem solve at school. And so I spent time with teachers. I had to meet some EAs in different schools, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
I think so. After I moved, because I worked that when I was fostering, I was in Hamilton, so a lot of kids could not move where I moved in Hamilton. It was too far away, so I started not getting a lot of kids. So that's when I started looking for jobs into the school board, and then I got hired as an education assistant. And yeah, I started from there as an education assistant, and I'm loving it. It's great. And yeah.
So would you say that particular kid that inspired your journey?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I am so glad, we never know how we end on the journey of our calling. And I feel like, somewhere, somewhat, I'm going to use the word God, always find the way to bring us on that journey. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think God used that particular kid to really, to lead you to your calling and to that journey. And that's a beautiful story. Thank you so much.
100%. Because that kid, even as a foster mom, I was having a lot. It was challenging. When I had my teenagers with me, it was hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not equipped for this. I don't think this is for me. Like, it was challenging. And then when I had that little boy, I'm like, okay, this is actually possible. And then later on, I had a teenager who, she came to me at the age of 12, and I lived with her all the way up to 21. When she turned 21, that's when she moved out of the house. And again, it was for that. From there, I was like, okay, no, with the same skills and the same strategies that I was using, I continue, of course, using it with a teenager, but upping it on her level, and I was able to work with her all the way up until she was 21. So yes, 100%. That little boy did inspire me for sure.
Thank you so much. And I want to ask you, with your experience working with schools, what are the resources available for children with special needs? And I like that you mentioned that in some areas, like suburb areas, sometimes it's hard to, have those resources, have educators that are equipped to help those children. But I want you to share with us what are the resources available, and this can even help parents to know what can I ask for, because sometimes we see our children challenged, and sometimes we don't even know what to ask for and who get access to them. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, for kids with special needs, the number one thing is having that person who's going to work with them one-on-one, who's going to help support them. Because a lot of frustration comes from not understanding what's going on. Oh, the classroom is too busy and it's moving so fast and they're not able to catch on. So having that, like an education assistant, for example, or somebody who's going to sit with them and work with them one-on-one, that is number one. Because what we do is, number one, we help with school, we help them with schoolwork, we play different roles. So sometimes it will be even as much as just having that 5-minute time where they could just sit down and talk about what's going on, or try to help them self-regulate if they are frustrated about something, for example, and just having that time. And teachers are working so hard, like they are amazing with what they do, but at the same time, having a classroom, a lot of times you find a classroom of 25 kids, and there's like kids with like all the kids are all on different levels. Some are on grade 5 levels, others are on grade 6, others are on grade 1, and you have some grade 3s, and they are all in one classroom. So the teacher is being scrambled everywhere to be able to help all these kids. So having different resources, they have some LSD where the kids can go and get extra help, and sometimes they have education assistants, but that's not enough, because you find a lot of times the education assistants are working with kids who have high behaviors.
Yes.
So you find that kid who just have a learning disability, for example, but they're not expressing their behavior, is not getting attention. Or sometimes you have that kid who is shut down.
So that means, for example, a kid might have special needs. Let's see, in a way they have learning disability, but in terms of their behaviors, they're okay. That means, when you decide who get access the most, children with behavior challenges get support more than, children with less behavior challenges. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, pretty much. Because sometimes you find you're spending, you have sometimes on my list I'll have maybe 5 kids that I need to work with, but I'm spending most of my time with a kid who have challenging behaviors, throwing rulers and chairs across the room, because he's putting more risk than the other kid who's, for example, sitting there and quietly, suffering quietly, but suffering, you know what I mean? And it is hard to watch. So, and that's why we need more support as in schools, hiring more education assistants, providing more programs, and maybe even programs and just education to teachers, and so that they could be able to support these kids and stuff would be very helpful. Yeah. So I mean, it's there. Definitely, there is help, but not where it needs to be. We could definitely do much more.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a discussion where what parents or caregivers should know. For example, if I know my children is not getting enough support, what am I gonna do maybe home to support more? And I think we're gonna get there. But I wanna ask you, Judite, as a caregiver to children with developmental disabilities, are there challenges in the education system that you think need to be addressed?
One of them that I can say is labeling. A lot of time I find it's right away they are labeled as a behavior, or they are labeled as whatever challenging they have. So it's kind of that's all they are, and being able to look past their behavior or their challenge and figure out how to what's beyond that. What can I do more for this kid? You know what I mean? Is one thing that I struggle with, because sometimes it's you have this kid and they're telling you, oh, he's autistic, he has challenging behaviors, they're aggressive, or they will destroy the classroom, and then that's it. So you're working the proactive is not there, as in what can we do to, and I'm not saying all schools are like that, but I find a lot of schools that's what it is. It's they're working to having what they can do to protect themselves rather than what can do to help the kid overcome that what they're facing. So the only thing that I can say that the schools need to work on, and also providing more support for the kids.
Yes.
Like if they more extra, instead of having one EA working with a student, maybe hire 2 EAs and train them so that the other one does not burn out, and they could always step and help each other out. So
Yes.
help the teacher, provide the teacher with trainings that will help her support the student in a way to get her what she needs to get.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
I really like that you mentioned on this need to label even children or any other youth, depending on their challenges, and constantly, especially in the mental health field, we are trained often that nobody is their disability. Yes, because I live with, a special condition does not define who I am. And I think I'm glad that you really touched on that, because it's so hard when the only thing we see when we see somebody is their either behavior challenge or learning disability challenge or any other thing. And I think that's what we do at Beyond the Veil, trying to really share educational tools to contribute to reducing stigma in the mental health and other areas. And with Gen 365, we want to share hope. Before we continue, I just want to encourage anyone, if you have, any children, any youth at home with, it can be any type of disability, visible or non-visible, because the disability can go beyond to what we see, to what we cannot see. So I think, we just want to encourage you that you are not alone. I think I was looking at the numbers when I was preparing for this conversation with you. For example, worldwide, this is just children and the youth. We are looking at, between 93 to 150 millions children that live with disability worldwide. And when it comes to Canada, and I can think that even these numbers can be higher because, statistics, there are some areas that, statistics cannot reach. However, when you look in Canada, we can see, when you look at in Canada, the number usually it's like, 1 out of 5, 1 in 5 children live with either different type of disability. And, I'm saying these numbers in a way to encourage, to know that you are not alone if you either having a child or a youth at home who needs special support. You are not alone. So we're going to continue. I need to ask you, for caregivers, frontline workers, and the community at large, do you think we are doing a good job equipping the next generation with tools to take care of their mental health? If so, how can we sustain that? If not, what can we do better? So, are we doing a good job to really equip the next generation as caregivers, frontline workers, and all of that?
I feel like mental health is something that should be talked about from a young age. I feel like even as young as kindergarten, starting to have those conversations I feel like is very useful, because a lot of kids are having some anxiety attacks but they don't understand what's going on. They don't know why their body is feeling the way they are feeling, and sometimes they start having tantrums or screaming and yelling, and that's because that's how they know how to respond. But at the same time, they don't know why, and then sometimes they are labeled to be the bad kid or the crybaby, but that's not what's going on. Maybe they're having a panic attack or anxiety attack, but instead of naming it what it is, they're naming it, oh, you're being a bad kid, and that's what they feel like they are really, but it's not them. That's what they're struggling with.
Yes.
So another thing that I noticed, even for myself, was an eye opener, is how much kids struggle from a young age in schools, from kindergarten. Because when I was fostering, I've had some kids who come in with really challenging behaviors, where they're like constantly screaming, constantly yelling, constantly fighting, destroying the homes, like disruptive behavior and everything. And I was like, oh my, instead of sitting down and talking to my kids about what was going on, I felt like I needed to protect them from it, as like they won't understand. And I felt like, of course I knew sometimes in some cases I was able to help them through and with self-regulation skills and providing all those equipment for the kids. It would help. But in other areas, though, it was really far beyond what I can do at home, and they maybe needed more support from seeing a therapist or a psychologist or something like bigger than what I can offer from home. And then I went to school, so it became a little challenging, especially with my kids. So I had to put a pause to it with how many kids I can have in my house and like the severity of need and stuff. So, but as I went to schools, I started working in schools. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
They might not be seeing it from home now, but they're seeing it from school. Like there's definitely seeing a kid throwing a dot at this over their head. So I'm like, I think these conversations need to be had where they teach the kids like, okay, little Charlie may be having really big feelings, and maybe having a way that you could explain a child and explain what mental health is and what it does to a person and why they behave the way they were, and they're not a bad person, they're just sick and they're having a challenging days. And even knowing those differences, I feel like will be really important, because a lot of times, even educators, what we do when kids are having a hard time, we just remove the classroom and take them outside and leave little Charlie in the room with an EA or somebody, an adult, to help them. But they don't understand why Charlie is behaving the way he's behaving. They don't just see like, oh, this kid is bad, or he's, they don't understand really. So I feel like having these conversations and we're seeing a lot of kids with depression, teenagers, like high numbers of suicide, a lot of kids from a young age, 6, 5, 7, talking about suicide. So obviously the problem is already here. So let's just start talking about it from to the kids from an early age, so that they can understand. Because the most frustrating part really is not knowing what's going on. Like, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Maybe because a kid will be able to tell you, I have a headache and I need Tylenol to help me. But if they feel like, oh, I'm feeling really sad right now and I'm not able to get out of bed, and knowing that, maybe I have depression or maybe I have anxiety, and knowing having tools to help them would be very beneficial from them from a young age.
Yes. I always say that the healing work is the community healing work. That means when I talk the community, I am involving everyone within the community, starting from practitioners, caregivers, even the individuals or children, the youth that need help. I think all of us, there has to be aware that you're educated or even have the basic knowledge in terms of the mental health, because you are so right. Sometimes you providing all these tools and resources, but children, when they go home, they're living with caregivers that do not understand how to support. I think there is the work of Dr. Perry. I think he's known for this. One of the books he wrote, I think the recent one is What Happened to Me with Oprah. And the other one was The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. He has so much work in helping children who have experienced children neglect. And one of the things he mentioned in his work is the importance of to teach children how the brain works. And he insists on, he shares that when children can understand how the brain works, how the brain process every information depending on what are their challenges, and how their brain is able to cope with stress or anything or respond to it, children are able to really have compassion, understand themselves, and even support children around them who have special needs. That means what he encourages that we're not looking at teaching only people or the children and the youth with special needs how their brain works. We are taking everyone in schools, all the children, make it mandatory to understand. Once they understand that, we're gonna see less bullying. We're gonna see, kids who have students who have even empathy towards other kids who are being challenged. Then we're gonna create a safe environment, not only for those children and the youth who need support, but everyone around them are gonna be aware on what type of how they see the world differently than how they see that. Yeah, that's really, thank you so much. And I wanted to ask you, when we started Gen 365 podcast at Beyond the Veil, we thought, what is, we thought about our first guest. We were like, who do we need to talk to? And one of the people that came in our mind were professional caregivers. Because we're often we talk about how to support people, but who is looking, out for caregivers? It can be professional or non-professional. For example, look at the work that you do. You're helping, children and the youth, with special needs, and you're putting also your emotions, everything there. Who looks out, for you or any other professional caregiver, or even just parents or anyone who takes care of, children and the youth with special needs. I need you to tell me who look out for them.
To be honest, I don't. So far, a lot of times, parents are left on the other, and which I feel like it's a big mistake. Because sometimes they'll be working with, like you said it yourself too. You're working with a student and you're teaching them all these tools, or even a patient as if a therapist, or you're working with a child and you're giving all these tools, but then the parent is not. You're not focusing on the parent who's at home with that child. So that parent also will need either support or training and anything that will help support this child as well at home and help the person overcome. So I feel like for the caregivers, it depends with a caregiver. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to go out there. You have to read. You have to find that information and seek information so that it's up to you to get the support that you need. And sometimes it's not easy to get to. Sometimes you need to make a lot of noise, just like those kids that we're talking about in schools who are getting those ES support are the ones who are making noise. Think about it. Yeah, so if you're quiet and you're not saying anything, you're not communicating what's going on, then definitely no one's going to be looking out for you. Yes. You have to be looking out for yourself. You have to make noise. You have to find out resources, talk to your community leaders, ask around. Because even myself, when I was fostering, there's so many things that I learned now that I'm like, oh my God. I did not know about this, because the kids that I had sometimes, like a lot of times in a lot of cases, had way more challenging and need of support than the kids that I'm working with in schools right now, who have education assistant, and they have counselors, they have maybe like CPRI or different organizations that will help the child. My kids did not have none of that. All they did was to go to school, scram for themselves, and then come home to me as well. I'm so thankful that I had the support that I had. My education background that I had, so that I was able to pick that and support them. But a lot of kids in foster care don't even have that. They are going home to parents out there who don't have as much training as they have. They don't even know how to care for these kids. So definitely in that area, we definitely need more work as a community, as a society, to support people and educate people more. There's so many things that I learned that I did not know of when I was fostering. Yeah,
that's even really great.
Yeah, like for example, even ES support. is something that I never heard of. And I know for
What is
sure
what is EA support?
so education work, like having an education assistant work with a student.
Okay.
Yeah. So if, like, for example, my kids who are running around the school and destroying the classroom and maybe screaming and crying for hours in a school, like those kids need EA support, like one-on-one, where they will have somebody who will work with them if they're upset, help them teach them social skills, teach them self-regulation skills, different things to help them when they're having a hard time, or even in school. I feel like they would have been able to be more successful than just being sent at home. And it was happening weekly, sometimes suspended for 3 or 4 days.
Oh.
So, you know what I mean? But nothing was being said to me. Nothing was being done. I'm just taking this kid home thinking that, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. But really, there was something that could be done. And all along, I'm sure the school knew that they could do this, but I don't know. Nobody did. So that was my experience in that area.
Yes. I try to tell people, even myself, based on what I know right now, compared to what I knew when I came to this country, Canada, I think, it's important. Any need you have, anything you feel like, I don't understand, I wish I can know more, it feels like, overwhelming, I don't know what to do, try to reach out to anyone that you might know that can provide you with any information. I think there's this episode we had with someone, I was saying, it can be any need you have. It can be housing, food, mental health, anything. Even sometimes go to, let's see, most of us, at least we know that here in Canada, we are eligible to have a family doctor, right? And family doctors usually have lots of resources. Even if they are not to help you, they can tell you, call this number. It can be housing, it can be food, counseling, and all of that. So anytime you feel like, because Judith mentioned herself, as caregivers, most of the time you need to advocate for yourself. It's not like, if you don't know, it's hard to know where are those resources. And I think that's what we want to do with this podcast, to pull up different resources that can help our community and communicate them here so people can know where to call. Even think about like in these community centers we have in every neighborhood, just show up there. Be like, can I talk to someone? I have this question, but I don't know who to talk to. Most of the time, one person will direct you to another one until you reach where you can receive that support. But don't keep things to yourself. We never know where the help can come from. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, another question. What are the practical tools can you share with caregivers of children and young people with special needs? What are the practical tools, things everyone should know that you can share with, caregivers? When I use the word caregivers in this particular question, I am talking about parent, anyone who primarily take care of someone with children or young people with special needs.
Yeah. I mean, the main one that I can talk about is self-care. Knowing when to take a break, knowing when you need, giving yourself some self-time. And as we all know, taking care of a child or anyone with mental health or special needs is challenging. It requires it takes a lot out of you. So, and a lot of time, a lot of parents, me included, and I can't even imagine, I was in a fostering position when I was, so I can't even imagine being maybe a biological child, mom, or it should be even more challenging. So, the first one is feeling like you need a break and taking time for yourself. The guilt comes with that. A lot of time parents feel so guilty. Well, I can't leave them. Well, this person does not understand them. This person is not going to do things the way I do them. So I feel like you're abandoning them when they need you. But really, you cannot feed somebody from an empty cup. So if you're always there and you're always giving and you're drained out, are you really helping that person? Because you're not giving them pretty much giving them from an empty cup. So going out, going away, taking time for yourself, having a weekend away, and this again, with resources, there's always resources out there, which like even fostering, sometimes we take in like the agency that I worked on, sometimes we'll take in kids from in a home, for example. If you're a mom and you have a kid with special needs, or you just need a time away from your kids, from your biological kid, and you need to just go away, we would take in the kids and we take care of them, and you can go away from your vacation. So these are resources. If you don't have grandparents near you or family members, just ask around, but you need to have that time for yourself. Like self-care is number one. Reading, educating yourself, finding out, like talking to your community leaders and talk to other parents around, really feeding yourself with as much information as you need. The more information you have, the more you're gonna know what to do and how to help get support for yourself and for your kid. Yes. So advocating, there's so many parents out there who do not have, there's some parents who have a lot of support, and then there's others who don't have none. And you compare their experience is pretty much the same thing. They're going through the same thing. It's just this parent has more people advocating for them, and the other parent doesn't. So really knowing and talking to people and finding out more information and educating yourself, and that will hopefully get more support that you need to get for yourself. So I think that's what I can share.
Those are really practical tools. Top self-care is essential, and I think you and I, we are mothers, and I know how that can be just, a word, but at the same time, it takes a lot to really commit ourselves to be like, this moment I'm choosing myself. And, for parents, and I'm thinking also parents with special children and youth with special needs, they have even more responsibilities. And, I like that you started with that one. Self-care is essential, and you mentioned that more resources that you have, more it's going to help you to know where to ask for help. If you can, as a caregiver, maybe have that notebook or on your fridge where you have different numbers where you can call. I think I have a few friends with children with special needs. I think if I remember well, sometimes you can get someone to help you maybe once a month, or maybe when you go on your vacation, they can bring someone. Try to really use those resources, even if you feel like in this moment I don't need that, because more you're able to raise, more you're gonna be able to support your children in any way. So thank you so much. And I think that leads me to the next question. I think you have shared different things about the work that you do, ways we can help others, and I think this conversation is going to help many caregivers, especially parents with children with special needs. And if you're listening to this conversation and you have questions, you can always reach out to us at Beyond the Veil Mission, either Instagram, Facebook. Judith work with us. She can really answer your question or share with you resources as, someone from the area. She's been in this field for a long time. Even if we don't have information right away, we will do our best to get those information from anywhere to support you or to direct you where you can get the support. So we focused on your work, but we're going to end our conversation with personal questions. And you are someone who gives a lot, not only to your family, to the people that you love, to your community, and the work that you do supporting children and youth. I've known you for a long time, and I really know that you have that gift. It's not just the work that you do, it's a gift that you have. And I want to ask you, if you were given an hour, like an extra hour within 24 hours, tell me one thing that you can do.
I'll probably definitely get extra sleep. I'll just stay for that extra hour.
Oh my God. Okay.
More.
I love that. That means you're gonna get more time to rest and relax. Yeah, that's nice. Then that means, and what I tell to our audience is like to our listeners is that yourself, when we end this conversation, pick your journal or your notebook and be like, if I was given 1 extra hour, what can I do? However, the reality, nobody's going to add 1 hour. But then this is a call to know what can I reduce so I can give myself that one thing that I feel like I need every single day. Myself, Judith, I did a challenge. It's been almost 2 weeks. Every time when it's time to go to sleep, my kids, I have given the permission to my boys. They take my phone away until the next morning. And the weekends, I do that as well. Like, one day of the weekend. So that extra hour, I can give it to myself without the pressure to think that there's an urgent request. I need to take care of something. So I'm going to ask you another thing. If an hour was reduced from those 24 hours, what is that one thing you can give up?
I'll definitely give up the technology, social media especially. I am a guru for Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, so I'll sit there for hours just staring at my screen. So definitely, I think I'll give up technology, just social media.
Wow. I think for our listeners, tell us, one thing you can give up if you had less than 24 hours, and one thing you can add if you have more than 24 hours. Judy said, giving up, technology, and I think myself as well, at the end of the day, I think we always chat on what kind of shows we're watching and all of that. That's something I had to evaluate myself. And I was like, I need to give up on few things and what it does. And I'm like, technology for sure could be that. And I'm working on that. And I'm so grateful for the progress that I'm making. So the last question she did. Tell us, what is one thing that Judith is most proud of? As we end this conversation, tell us, it can even be 2 things, but we want to know what you're proud of, Judith. Tell us. Thank you.
One thing that I'm proud of is definitely my family. I'm really close to my family and I call them my glue. So I think definitely I'm proud of my family, like our bond and how close we are. And I feel like I definitely won't be where I am without my family. So that's the most thing that I'm proud of.
Wow. That's really beautiful, especially having a family is a privilege. And I know how you really root for your family, care for your family. That's something that I know from you. And I was so happy chatting with you today. We're ending our conversation today, and I'm going to invite everyone to share this conversation or send us, requests or DM if you have any question, clarification, resources, anything. We are here. So thank you so much. This was, conversation from Gen 365 podcast, and we wish you a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That's it for the week. We hope you gathered your dose of resilience for the week ahead. Follow Gen 365 podcast to know when the next episode comes up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or Google Podcasts. Share with your friends, community, and family, and do not also forget to follow and share feedback or questions on our community organization social media at Beyond the Veil Mission on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Or learn more about our work via our website at www.beyondtheveilmission.com. In the spirit of building resourceful, stronger communities, We can also help your community or business or organization to share your news and event on our podcast. Please email us for collaboration at podcastgen365@gmail.com. Thank you. Bye.